Right. Good morning, everybody. Right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the webinar organized by the Eurosite European Land Conservation Network Working Group on Agriculture, Biodiversity and Climate, called in Dairy Farming, Holistic Plan, Grazing and Climate. And given this year's very hot and very dry summer in Europe, the climate aspect is very timely, I would say. We have one speaker, Christine Bajohr from the Allgäu, which is a mountainous region in the very far south of Germany, more or less on the Bavarian-Austrian border. And before I hand over to Christine, I'd just like to reiterate the message which was put on screen a few minutes ago. After Christine's presentation, there will be a question and answer session. And this webinar, there will not, I repeat, not be an opportunity for those who wish it to unmute themselves and go live. In other words, we won't have the opportunity for those who wish it that they appear on screen and ask their question directly. It means, therefore, that I will ask all questions on behalf of the participants. So when you have a question, use the question and answer button. Don't use a chat button. That's for comments and for additional information. So use the question and answer button, type in your question, and I will read out your question on your behalf. If you'd prefer to be anonymous, in other words, if you'd, because we're recording this webinar, if you prefer to be anonymous, please say so in your when you type in your question and answer, and then I will report the question as someone has asked XYZ. Otherwise, I will give the name of the person asking the question when I ask the question at the end of the session. Well, anyway, let's start. It's, of course, this is a bit of it's still a holiday time for many people in Europe. And we noticed that when sending out the invitations and reminders that there are quite a few out of office messages and so forth. And that's why we're recording this webinar, because we know a number of people are interested who would have wanted to join but can't, because they're either on holiday or having come back from holiday, they're immediately swamped by so much work they can't attend, which of course is, well, we all know about the millions of emails and meetings waiting for one when one is back from holiday. Without further ado, I'll give the floor to Christine. Christine, off you go. It's all yours now.
Thank you, Anton. Okay. So you can see the screen now. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm happy to have the opportunity to present our project to you today and to give a little bit of an overview. But I also want to give some insights of the motivation behind the project, which is called Kuh pro Klima, Cows for Climate. And this project started on our farm in Bavaria. We are located in the region called Allgäu. That's, like Anton said, near the border of Austria, and Switzerland is not far away either. And I live in this place now for almost 25 years. Well, since I married an original Allgäuer mountain farmer, a very rare species, by the way. And yeah, we are here the fourth generation of this typical mountain farm. It's quite a small farm, 25 hectares. But therefore we are quite creative and quite diverse. And therefore we are more or less independent, which helps a lot in these times. And yeah, of all what I listed here, the maybe most impact we got out of this holistic management framework concept. We discovered this in 2015 and started then 1 year later with the holistic plan grazing, and we really never looked back. But on the other hand, the more we learned about nature's way, we realized that we definitely needed more on-farm research. We need more knowledge about everything. And that's why we invented the project Q Pro Klima. But that wasn't the only reason. The main reason actually why we changed so many things were that we really are facing a lot of weather extremes. It got really worse the last 10 to 15 years, and it's getting worse every year. And if you look at this graphic, you can see why, because the temperature is rising in the Allgäu as well, and that makes our life more difficult. So we are quite affected on our location because it's a specific part of underground. We are located on an end moraine, so it's more or less a pile of rubble, not a very stable underground, very difficult soil types underneath, steep slopes, in parts over 50%. And yeah, erosion is definitely a topic here through wind and water. We have a quite short vegetation period, high rainfall, and yeah, and the snow is getting heavier every year as well because the temperature is rising. So with longer periods of droughts in between, so it's getting more and more difficult. But yeah, you can't really blame it only on the weather. We and maybe the generation before us, we made some severe management mistakes as well, and they didn't help us in our task of becoming more resilient. So in hindsight, I can see what we did wrong. This okay, that was okay, from the conversion from another program. So yeah, well, we did a lot of things wrong, and this is a picture of the old days, maybe taken 15 or 20 years ago, but it shows quite good why we weren't able to build soil and to get more deep-rooted biomass. So at least we figured out that we couldn't continue with what we were doing, and we tried to change it and switched to the other extreme, which wasn't helpful either. So we faced quite a lot of losses here as well with this more extensive management. We even had to destock our cattle because there wasn't enough forage growing anymore to bring them, all the cattle, through the year, not only through the winter, especially in summer when it was really dry. It wasn't growing anymore. So we had to do something, and we tried more things, and then we discovered this holistic management concept. And it took us a while to understand what the trick is behind this. And it's the variability. It's I have a medical background. That's why I can associate this with the heart rate variability of an organism. So the higher it is, the better it can adapt to influences from the outside, and the healthier it is in the end. So we the problem is really, or was for us before that we really tried to keep everything even at the same level, but that really doesn't make us resilient at all. So instead of controlling our system even more to fight weather extremes, instead of pumping a lot of effort or more energy into the system to keep it permanently on the same level, we really have to learn to feel the pulse, the heart rate of our land, of our living system. And then we can figure out what's needed and go from there. So we have to, like Savory says all the time, it's really about doing the right thing at the right time with the right behavior. But is it easy? No, it's not. So because it takes a lot of practice and experience to get the whole picture. And the other thing we didn't understand or knew about was the concept of the underlying ecosystem processes. So we didn't see or didn't get the whole picture and didn't see how everything is connected. But yeah, as a farmer, you know everything about farming, but you don't know much about how nature works. And as it turns out, that's very essential if you want to sustain in future. So what we really need to know is, how can we find our way back into the system? How do we get the natural nutrient cycle going without or with less liquid manure? So how can we implement more biodiversity in our pasture? And when is the right time to graze a plant so that the carbon sequestration process improves? Or by what signs do you see the water cycle is improving? So is the succession going backwards or forward? And if you figured all that out, what then I have to know what I need to do with that information. And the cow knows all this. She's really a specialist in improving soil fertility, and she can create very biodiverse landscapes. That's why she can help us now with our climate change problem. She can improve all ecosystem processes in grasslands, but she also can destroy them if you don't let her do her job properly. That's what we did wrong at the beginning. So it's really up to us in the end if it goes into the right direction or if everything is degrading again. So, and this holistic management framework is quite helpful to manage living systems, but still you need to have an understanding of your climate and your land, the pulse, so to speak, of your land, or the heart rate, and your context to use it successfully. And one of the tools of this holistic management framework is the holistic plant grazing. So it's always getting mixed up. It's not the same. Holistic management framework and holistic plant grazing, it's not exactly the same. So most of the time, holistic plant grazing looks like mob grazing, but actually it's more than that. And without going into much detail, one can say that the main goal of holistic plant grazing is to try to improve the ecosystem processes. Holistic plant grazing means you manage for the cow, for yourself, for the soil, for the plants, and even for the wildlife. And the idea is to improve everything. So you don't focus only on the productivity of the cow, of the milk outcome or meat, whatever you do. So the outcome, on the other hand, is always what the farmer has planned or managed for, or what he wants. So That's why it's so difficult to compare two farms who are doing a holistic management, because every farmer has the same, not the same goal. He wants to reach different outcomes. So since we are grassland dairy farmers, and we have cows who are highly specialized in land restoration, we should really know more about what they can do besides giving us milk and meat. And these are the main questions now for us to discover. So how does she do it? And what does she actually do? And how can we help her to do the right thing? And that's why the point when we decided that we need more help from science. And that's why we founded the OG Grünland in 2019. And with we, I mean 7 dairy farmers. We are all organic dairy farmers, and 3 scientists and 2 other partners we have in our group. And we also could win the soil science chair of the TU München for our project, and the Bavarian Academy for Nature Conservation and Landscape Management. And it's funded by the EU, and the title of our project is Kuh pro Klima, Cow for Climate, Innovative Strategies for Resource Saving and Resilient Grassland Management. And yeah, we didn't want to waste time and compare different grazing systems. We really wanted to test new strategies. And under the context of climate change. So we packed the 4 strategies into the concept we already found helpful on our farm. And then the question was, does this combination work on other farms as well? So the first task then was to provide more knowledge through workshops about biodiversity and ecosystem functions and so on. And at the same time, the farmer learned how to use the holistic plant grazing concept. And then together with the farmers, we developed individual biodiversity concepts, so-called land planning for each farm. And last but not least, we focused on improving the soil through inoculation of self-produced compost extracts. So, and we also checked how the farmers could adapt all these strategies in their system. Yeah, as I explained before, we want to understand better the why and the how in our specific context and reality. That's why, on the one hand, we are producing now 7 case studies. And on the other, we gain quite a lot of information on the test plots we implemented on each farms, where we compare the grazing versus only cutting the grass, plus additionally the application of compost extract versus slurry. So, and yeah, we have tried to record as much as possible with the capacities we had to get a better idea or a bigger picture from all perspectives, holistic research if you want. So yeah, we also wanted to get an idea for our future projects, an idea what methods or tests are really useful for getting a better understanding of the functionality of the whole system. For example, when the best time is to analyze soil life, just before or after grazing. And as always, we need to know what method will give the farmer a useful and reliable insight without having many additional costs. So in the first year, we did a lot of workshops and a lot of public relations as well, because we wanted to get more attention from the public to support our crowdfunding for the project. We still need some money to fill the remaining gap. So if you are interested to join the crowd, I can put a link in the chat afterwards. Yeah, the farmers have or still have quite a lot of documentation work to do. That's why we use the Maya grazing app from Australia. That's quite helpful, and they help us to evaluate the dates afterwards. And we use also this for the soil assessments, the Soil Mentor app. Maybe many of you might already know this app. It's developed in the UK by VidaCycle. That's quite helpful to collect all these data right on the field. So, and then we mapped the plants twice a year on the test plots quite closely, but the same we did on the whole farm as well, but more random there. It's at least on the pastures which we were grazed with the cow herds. And we decided that it's important to look into the soil life network as well, if there are all functional groups present at all times, or to at least to get an idea of the succession, the fungal bacteria ratio, and even of the mycorrhization of the roots. And we also have to do now one more soil test trail this fall. And yeah, next year we will be able, hopefully, to present some more results. Yeah. And this year and the last year, we had 3 bachelor theses in progress on different topics. And currently there is a master thesis on the climate footprint ongoing. So, and a lot of time we spent last year as well with the land planning to improve the cow habitat, so to speak, and the wildlife habitat as well. And in the meantime, we discovered also that it's not so easy to plant trees and hedges on your own land in Germany, but that's really another story. Yeah, and last but not least, we conducted quite a lot of experiments with producing special fungal dominated composts, which end with the production of compost extracts, and even with developing useful equipment for the production and the application of the extract. And we even did trials to figure out which compost extract application method gets the best response of soil life. And yeah, in the end, everything we did will be published in our guide for improving ecosystems in grassland farms. There we show the case study of each farm. We are already busy with writing. We started with the history of each farm, the vision of the farm family, their resources and strategies, what they planned for, how they manage their grazing each season. We show the problems they had and the solutions they found, their process of thinking, their change of mindset, if there was one, and in the end, what conclusion they got out of this project and how they want to proceed in future. So this is one farm here, and we are not finished yet. There are at least 5 more pages coming there. And yeah, then we back all this up with our evaluation, with the results and conclusions of all the data we collected. And in the end, this guide will be available for free. So everybody can download it from our website next year. Yeah, some of our Q-Pro-Klima learnings so far are that nature reacts fast, especially if you do the right thing. We discovered that the cow has an effect. She promotes deeper rooted grasses with this management. There is definitely a transition phase, especially if you start with poor initial conditions, and everybody really has to get used to the new behavior, to the new planning, the farmer, the cow, the plant, the soil, even the wildlife. And this takes time. And then every year is different because of the weather. And yeah, in average, we had the same amount of milk every year, every farm. That was quite stable. But everyone had more forage left for the winter, although we could extend the grazing season a little bit. We learned that there is not much to compare in complex living systems, except maybe trends, but you can show progress and you can look for patterns, and that's what we do. And the outcome, however, if there is an improvement or not, depends really almost always on the farmer, on his mindset, how much energy and time he is willing to invest, especially in the thinking and planning process, and his ability to adapt. And knowledge definitely helps to change your mindset. That's clear. So, and last but not least, we figured out that we need better methods and protocols for the evaluation of living systems, yeah, under on-farm research conditions. So, yeah, we got some ideas and would like to improve that in the next project. So, what else? What did we see? It's relatively easy to improve biomass in the first or even second year, only with paying more attention to the grazing so that you don't overgraze, and the lengthening of the recovery time helps as well. But then after that, it gets a little bit more complex because you have to decide now how you want to proceed, what plants do you want to promote. In this photo, you see a pasture where the grasses clearly dominate, but we still found 48 species in here this year, like we did in the years before. But every year it takes longer to find them all because the grasses dominate more and more every year. So this grazing system, as I said, the cow promotes the grasses. So one solution, that's our place here, one solution could be, if I want less grasses again, to leave less biomass behind, let them graze it more down, put a little bit more stress in this plant community, and try to get more dynamic into the system. So the right decision could be for me next year to get a little bit backwards in succession. Maybe I do this here because I want to have more clover, more forbs again here. Yeah, what we saw on most farms, that having more roots means more soil life activity, while the above ground life was higher on the meager pastures like here, with a higher plant biodiversity. And we saw as well that the cows, especially our two-purpose breeds, they thrive quite good on pastures with less sport density and with meager plant communities. So with meager pastures. So it's not always a good thing to have access to an abundance of food supply. You eat too much and you have to get rid of it, which in turn costs energy again. So the same goes for us and for the cow as well. And we discovered that there is a good way to figure out if the cow gets the right offer forage. So we found this Obstalim method. A French veterinary developed this method. And unfortunately, we managed only this year to learn more about this method. But you can get really a good and especially an immediate feedback of the condition of your pasture and your herd if you are able to read your cow herd with different eyes. So if you would like to learn more about this method, you can look it up on obstalim.com. It's available in English as well. So our conclusion so far is that, well, we think we are absolutely on the right track. If we want to survive in the long term on this planet, we have to find our way back to nature somehow. So we definitely gained a lot of experience in on-farm research, and I completely understand now why scientists prefer controlled trays under lab conditions. It was not easy to coordinate everything, especially with the corona was a problem as well. But I think we made it somehow. But we definitely need more knowledge about the missing links. We have to gather more information, test it, and work with that. Otherwise, we won't be able to bridge the gap between agriculture and nature. And therefore, we need more case studies and at the same time, more in-depth research on specific issues, but definitely or hopefully always in collaboration with us farmers. So the project officially will end next year in March, but because of the carbon measurements, which will be done again by the TU Munich, we will extend it for another 3 months. And yeah, well, the next EP Agri project is already in the starting blocks. We want to launch a special project that we called an Regenerative Agriculture Mentorship Network Program. And next week is the deadline for the application. So we hope we will make it. So, and there are already ideas for 4 more projects, which would allow us to go a little bit deeper in the specific areas. And that's why we decided this year to found a limited cooperation to structure and to organize ourselves in a different way that I think will give us the possibility to work more with more partners, more scientific partners from different disciplines, and we can use different funding programs as well. So, and hopefully we get some more funding through more donors and sponsors. Yeah, that's it for now. I thank you for listening. Yeah, I did my best with my English. And if you have questions, just ask.
Thank you, Christine. That was very interesting. I've been taking notes as well. And I see there are already some questions. Let's see, I'll start with the first question I'll take. It comes from Bill Grayson, a farmer in England. And he asks, how do you monitor the numbers of plant species? Is the total count per field, or do you use quadrants to assess relative abundance? And how do you measure fungal bacteria ratio? So these are technical questions, but I think quite important to understand how your project actually works, and certainly of interest to anybody wanting to try something similar. So is the question clear, Christine, or do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, well, Franzi Hanko is doing this, the plant part, and she's using the Braun Planquet method on each test plot. But she also goes around and while she counts the species, yeah, and she has different how to say this in English.
You could say it in German. We could try to translate.
Ja, sie hat bestimmte Tabellen, wie sie das dann in Beziehung setzt oder auswertet.
Bestimmte?
Methoden oder Tabellen, wie sie das in Beziehung setzt und auswertet.
Okay,
aber
so,
sie nutzt diese Braun-Planquet Methode, um das herauszufinden. Auf diesen, also Quadranten hat sie da. Genau, ich bin da nicht dabei, aber
so they're using the Braun Planquet method,
yeah.
And they this yields tables in which you can see the relationships between the different species. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But you will see in March.
Okay. Then
and
we
for
have
the soil life, we have a scientist here. He's looking through a microscope and he's counting many samples. He uses the method or an adapted method of Elaine Ingham, where he's counting every sample five times of each sample. It's very complicated, takes a long time. And he has a protocol where he can see how the ratio is and the other network species, if they are there or not. They are not always there. Not everybody is there all the time. And what we see, they are reacting to the influence of the cow. So it's a different if you take the sample before grazing or after grazing somehow. And the weather is influencing as well. So it's very difficult to get conclusions out of it. We really would like to do it over a longer period now to see where it's really going and how we can influence it, or how we do influence it with our management.
And the fungal bacteria?
Yeah, it's the ratio is quite important, and it's changing over the time. If you go from the wheat to the more to the deeper root grasses, and when you get more deeper rooted plants into the system, it's changing a little bit. And if when your soil is improving as well.
Okay, we have another question from Carolina Halevi, and her question is, with holistic plant grazing, how do you determine stock sizes and optimal grazing densities at your farm?
Yeah, that's the art of this. You have, the main thing is you have to go outside and you have to look every day, at least twice, get an idea of the pulse of your land. How how high is the forage, how dense is it, what kind of species are there? And then on the other hand, you look on your herd. What does your herd need? Do I have the dairy cows or the young ones, the cattle? And they have a different, they require different amount of and a different quality of the forage. And then you go out and decide how much do I want to leave behind, what time of the year it is, and then you is it growing back fast or not? So, and then I decide how much space I will give them, how I plan this, because I want to have this effect or that effect, then I use more density or less density. It depends. So I can't give you a recipe. Nobody really can. But that's why it's so important to understand the principles behind it. And you have to have a clear picture what you want to see, what you want to improve.
Okay, and now I have a question from, there's quite a few questions actually. I'll try to get through them and try perhaps to group them a bit by theme. This one also follows on. It's from Christian Bogen, and his question, he says he likes a lot the solution-oriented approach and the learnings. And he goes on to ask, from your experience, are there specific metrics you consider key that provide helpful guidance for any kind of agricultural system, also beyond organic, in order to gradually and maybe scalably improve the environmental performance? Do you want, is it clear, the question? So which metrics do you consider the key metrics, the ones that give helpful guidance to any kind of farming system, whether it's organic or non-organic, to improve its environmental performance?
I think for a farmer, if you can't do probes every time, so you have to make a decision at now when you are out there. And for me, the best tool to get an idea, two things are very important: the plant species, the growth, how it looks, how it reacts, and the herd. Now, it's really, if you are really able to read the plants and the herd, and get this, correlate this, then it's a really powerful, helpful tool with management. So, and that's why we want to go more in depth in the next project with this Obsolim method, to get an idea, to correlate this, what we observe at our herd, with the plants. So yeah, I think that's the really essential. And to see the progress in your soil, well, we have to look at the roots and maybe the aggregates, but the roots we always neglected, and they are so important. You don't get carbon or anything if you don't have roots in your system. And that's why this holistic plant grazing is so helpful, because it helps you it helps the plant as well to get more root development. And we have to figure out that we get the timing right there. But I think you don't need a lot of tools to get along. You have to have your eyes, and you have to do it. You have to have practice and try to read your land and get the whole picture. Yeah, because every 10 meters it's different anyway. So we have at least 3 or 4 different zones where we have a completely different plant species, plant community, different soil type, and you have to manage everything different to improve your land. And it's very helpful in the end to give space, so that nature knows best anyway what she's doing with that. So if there are different plant species, new plant species coming, maybe it makes sense, and maybe we have to help them to develop further in their succession.
Okay, and now I have a question, another question, which is about the, if you like, the status quo ante, which is about, the question is, how much fertilizer were you using before you started this holistic plant grazing, and how much herbicides were you using before? And that also brings me to a question that intrigued me. You said at the beginning of your presentation, you said that the cows instinctively know how to work with nature, to put it that way, but they can also destroy nature if we, the farmers, don't let her do her work properly. Now, what did you mean by that? Well, how does a farmer not let a cow do her work properly? So those two questions: how much fertilizer, herbicides, etc., were you using before, and what do you mean by not letting a cow do her work properly?
Also, we never used herbicides, never. And we stopped putting out slurry or liquid manure in 2012. And then we really, it went worse without nitrogen. And then we started with holistic management. And additionally, we put out some compost, but not every year and not as a fertilizer. We only use a little bit and not every year. So it's more an inoculation of the system. And when you put some more workers out there, you have to provide some shelter, habitat, and food for them. And this holistic management system helps the microbiome in the ground to thrive. So it wasn't that difficult anymore, and we had less work. And yeah, that was one thing. And then when your soil is improving, you get different plant species. It just is developing like that. So you just have to wait and look and manage a little bit. So you that's why I showed the pictures. We had cows. We always had cows here on this farm, dairy cows, but they couldn't do it really because we managed them not correctly. We overgrazed all the time because we kept them on the same spot too long, and they came back too early and they stayed too long, and we didn't really manage it right. So the soil and everything got worse, and we had to put in more energy in the system to keep it somehow stable or growing. And then we did the other way. So we had less animals and we did less impact and there was less cycling there happening, and it wasn't good either. So less doing less is not helping as well. Well, that's what we found out. So it's very important to do everything, and but to the right time. That's really the trick behind everything. So it's important to put on more density, to stress the plant sometimes, or even the soil. You could get a different feedback, and that makes your system more resilient, and your cow as well. It's not always good that you feed your cow till she can't move anymore, because she has to get rid of all the over load. And the microbiome of the cow has a problem, like with the soil. If you put on too much biomass or leave you too much biomass behind, and you have a poor soil life and no moisture, it just stays there and rots there and oxidizes into the atmosphere. So you have to look what's needed, how much, and don't do everything at the same time, but you have to have a plan and a goal, and then you have to try, and then you have to practice.
Good. And now we have a question from Kyriakos Skardas in Greece. Again, thank you for your presentation. You're getting lots of thank yous, Christine. Do you see or predict any competition with wildlife, and particularly deer, after a successful restoration? And if there is, do you think there could be or would be a compatible management?
Well, it's a little bit problematic with deer here, because in this community, they have to shoot a lot of deer every year. But what we observed, because we have 3 hectares of forest as well, and we try to use it with our cattle as well, but it's not allowed in Germany. Nothing is allowed. But we can see that the deer is grazing as well, and they're not affecting the trees so much because they have enough forage. And we also see now every winter, or even in spring, Gämse. I don't know the English word.
Geese.
Eine Gams.
Gämse. No. Sorry, that's chamois. Chamois. It's that deer that lives high up in the mountain.
Yeah, with the
horns. Yeah.
So they come back now, and a very good cooperation we have with ducks. The ducks, the animal lives underground. What is the name of the ducks? They're big. They belong to the beer. They're big, size like half for me, 80 centimeters maybe.
Ente?
I have to look it up.
A duck is an ente.
No, not a duck.
Ducks.
No,
ducks.
it's
You mean ducks?
DACHS.
Yeah, ducks. Badger.
Genau.
Badger.
And we have a cooperation with them, because they live there in one edge of our land, and they are allowed to stay there and make big, huge holes. But they come and go to the pasture 3 or 4 weeks after the cows have been there, and then they remove the hard plates of the cow pads and break them up, and they look for the worms. And through this, we really can go out and mow the field the next time after already 6 weeks, and we have no manure in the hay. So we try to live more with the wildlife. So we provide more hedges now and habitats, and try to work together.
Right. Well, we have more. I think we're having more questions than time even. Let's see if I can sort of group some. Well, a very quick question. Why is grazing of woodlands forbidden in Germany? That's where you, and in the meantime, I'll look at the other questions.
Well, in the Middle Ages, they overdone this. Everybody put the cattle in the forest so that they have more space for crops. I don't know. And they destroyed a lot of woodland. And then there was a law, and to stop this. And since that, the forest department says, well, it's not possible anymore. So if you have an old right to do this, you can, but normally you are not allowed, even if it's your own forest.
Right. Okay. Well, here's two questions which can kind of be grouped together. How has the number of cows on your farm changed as you move to holistic grazing? And have you done any reseeding of old pastures to get a mix of species you think is more desirable, or is it all semi-natural?
We did no reseeding, never, and you don't have to, because you always have different stages of growth, and some have seeds then, and some not. You can manage this, and there's a big, huge seed bank in the ground, so they just sit there and wait till the time is right, or the conditions are right, and then they are coming. And you can really influence things with a little bit of compost. So usually You get more clover, especially red clover, if you have a little bit of good compost. We only need about 3 tons per hectare just to give it a little bit of input. And what was the other question?
The other question was, how has the number of cows changed as you
Okay.
move to holistic grazing?
Yes. Well, we doubled our number now on our farm, and we need more animals during the summer because it's like this year it's yeah, it's two units per hectare in average. But in the winter time, we have a lot of snow. We have to destock quite fast now, and that's a little bit of a problem because we are selling. We are doing this direct marketing on ourselves, so to get the best price, and it's not so easy to get to sell all animals in autumn or winter. So yeah, that's a problem at the moment. It's a new problem. And especially now because the people are saving their money because of the high energy prices, and they stop eating meat, or not stop, but they eat less meat, they invest less money, but it will go away as well. So, and it's very important. You get, if you have more animals, you get a faster feedback, and you reach your goals faster. But you really have to manage this correctly.
And now a question from Ivana Selanek. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, from Croatia. And she was very keen, very happy with your presentation, and is looking forward to see the guide. When next year will it be published or online?
Yeah, in March. Just look on www.qproklima.de.
Good. And then another question from Bill Grayson in the UK. He's asking, well, two things actually that kind of fit together. On the one hand, it's how do you market your milk, and and the other question is where did the funding for your project, because the study is very detailed, so it must have cost a lot of money. So where does that funding come from?
Yeah, from the EU and the state of Bavaria, but they only pay 80%. So yeah.
What about the crowdfunding? That was
Yes,
you mentioned that. That's interesting. How does it work?
Yes, well, we get a lot of smaller donations, and one foundation was giving us a lot of money, or more money. So now we have half the money we actually need. So I'm still trying to find sponsors for this project, and we already try to find money for the next project.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm interested personally. I mean, crowdfunding is very unusual in the context of what we do. How did you organize crowdfunding? How do you reach people like in your district who are your neighbors or people in where you live?
Yeah, we used our networks we already had, but we wrote a lot. We communicated a lot through press. Recently, there was an article in the Taz, a bigger newspaper, and that gave us already the next day we had 3,500 euros just after one article. So that helps. But the beginning was quite difficult because even 2019, we had to explain what regenerative agriculture is. In the Department of Agriculture, they didn't know about this, and why the cow can do something good for climate. So it was quite difficult to explain it because the people knew that the cow is bad. So, but it's changing now, and the press is writing differently now, more reflected, and what we really try to do very hard is to tell a new story about the cow. about what she really can do. That's why we are so, yeah. We go to schools and do presentations there, and we discovered that the School of Agriculture, they have they're on a standard of 1995, so they don't know anything about grazing. It's really difficult, but we see all these gaps now, and that's why we want to do our company and provide in different areas. We want to fill in the gaps.
Mm. Good.
And if somebody is interested in joining us, because we want to stay on a Europe level, one a guy from Portugal is already there, and more are coming. So maybe just contact me, and I collect the good people and the interested people, and maybe if there's a new project on the horizon, we can join forces.
The other question was about how you market your milk.
Yeah. At the moment, we are not at the moment. We deliver this on to a cheesery not far away, so that's why we get quite a good price, and because it's without silage, only hay in the winter. But now our life changed here with the company and the project, and now we decide maybe that we stop milking and just do raising the cattle and doing more research and experiments on our farm, because this place, as difficult as it is to manage, it's very good for research, because what we see on our farm now, the other will see in maybe 3 years on their places. So we have some sort of advantage here.
But that's intriguing because you've got a good income from the cheesery. So why are you giving up this good income, and how are you going to compensate for? Because a farm is busy.
Well, we don't have that much milk. Yeah, we are a small farm, so you have always to see what's at the moment. What's the best way in average, everything put together.
Right. Okay, well, we're over time now, but there's still most participants are still here, so I think we can carry on a few more minutes. Another question came up is about, would holistic grazing be appropriate for mixed habitats, the kind of habitats you find in nature reserves, where you have areas of wetland, scrub, and woodland, all in the same area with animals moving between them?
Yeah.
And how would, and if it is, would it be any different from what you're doing on the farm?
Well, actually, what we want to create are mixed habitats, because we saw if you want your cows outside and it's getting warmer and hotter, and they need a different kind of habitat, it makes no sense to keep two systems going, to the stable part and the pasture part. That's not sustainable, and you don't get a good effect if you let them graze only for 6 hours and then you keep them inside. So they you have the manure inside, but you need it outside, and you have the double work. So if you want your cows doing a good job outside, you have to provide good habitat, and therefore you need shade, you need protection, trees, shrubs, and you can use it as well because they like to eat leaves. And I think that would be a next project. We can influence the methane as well through a different type of plants and plant offer for the cow nutrition out there. So we can do, I think, a lot more than we do now. And I think it's not a problem to implement a wildlife and do this. A little bit a problem is maybe if everything goes wild and you have not enough space to fence things, to so that the herd is moving, it's not staying on the good spots where it's comfortable for them. And then you have to because we don't have the wolves here yet. It's the predators you need, actually, if you don't want to fence. You have to have predators, so that's not an option here in Germany in our side. So you have to move your fences, and then you have to really look what's possible or not. That's why we do the land planning, to mix this somehow. For example, my cows, we have steep slopes there, but my cows don't really like to go up there and lay down because it's too steep. So they always go to the same spot, and there I have a lot of maybe too much nitrogen input, and it's lagging somewhere else. So with a fence and with the right management, I can try to keep them where I want them to have, at least for a short time, and every year it's improving.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Well, I see the number of participants is gradually starting to diminish, and yes, we're
Yeah.
over time. I think we'll take one last question, or rather I'll combine two questions into one, and that's the last, and then we sign off. So this question is, have you done any carbon accounting for your farm, and how much does the methane from the cows contribute to the total carbon? And from Bill Grace in the UK, is asking whether you'd be able to include any British farms in new studies.
Yeah. The carbon, we did the carbon assessments at the beginning of the project. At the TU München, the University of Munich, did this, and they will do this next year again. But they also said, well, maybe 3 years are not enough. We should continue, and that's why we want to do the next project with them together and keep on testing on our test plots. Would like to do a long-term study. So yeah, I can give you an answer next year. But we will continue with that. And for sure, I really like to work with the UK as well. I've been there in May and visited some farms over there. It was quite interesting, and it's, yeah, we have all the same problems. So I think it's helpful if everybody has to look and research, and then we have to bring the knowledge together. So I really would like to get in contact with you all who are interested in this, what we are doing.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Christine, for your presentation, answering all those questions. You must have felt a bit like a goalie in football, fielding all these balls kicked at you, but you did well. And thank you, participants, for your interest and for asking so many questions. That's always good when there's plenty of feedback. So I think I will now close this webinar, and it's been recorded, so you can always see it again on the Eurosite ELCN website. We'll make sure that the link is somehow published. We're in the middle of a revamp of the website, so it'll be maybe a couple of weeks before it's fully operational, but we'll make sure that you can access that recording in an easy way. And I look forward to the next webinar, which will be on in the 3rd week of September, which is again continues the subject of grazing, but now it will be about conservation, grazing, and the common agriculture policy. So wishing everybody a very fine day, and thank you all for attending and for your presentation, Christine.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.